So, our first of our three guests for this special unit panel, a gentleman who's played familiar for two roles in Doctor Who, first Brett Vion and then the Brigadier, but the most memorable acting performance I've seen him ever give was in the bar. Last year at 2 o'clock in the morning, which was in fact the world premiere of the Doctor Who TV movie, with a group of people reading the script. Sylvester McCoy made a fabulous Paul McGann, and our next guest, Miss Nicholas Courtney, made a fabulous Daphne Ashbrook. And I'm sure Brian would never have left Grace if Nicholas Courtney was playing him. Please, Nicholas Courtney.
Who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler, if you think we're on the run? We are the boys who will stop your little game. We are the boys who will make you think again.
Some of you may remember that... What? Yes, all right, mine's about... Well, you see, yesterday night I retired early, having overdone it on that momentous, wonderful Thursday and Friday of this week. So I retired early. So because I retired early, right, I thought, I'll get the fire alarm going so the Brigadier can clear the bar and get everyone back to bed. Not true, really. I wouldn't do that.
Thank you very much. 5 rounds rapid, please. Mine's a pint as well. Our next guest has been known by many names across the world. Some of them I can read out now. Johnny Redboots, Gentleman Johnny Bingo, John Anthony Blake, but to us, he's John Levene and John Benton. Please, John.
Who do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler, if you think we're on the run? We are the boys who will stop your little game. We are the boys who will make you think again.
And to complete our, I believe the phrase is unit family, an actor who in 1974 as Michael Yates got mixed up with a bunch of celebrities and politicians in a plot known as Operation Golden Age, a bunch who sought to turn back time to a simpler age, and isolationism was their watchword. Last week, as referendum party candidates for Hackney South and Shoreditch, Richard Franklin moved into politics properly, and he is our next guest. Thank you, Richard.
Do you think you are kidding, Mr. Hitler, if you think we're on the run? We are the boys who will stop your little game. We are the boys who will make you...
And to interview these three fine figures of men from Dreamwatch, Paul Simpson.
We all sit in a row?
Sit in a row, yeah.
It is French.
We could have done it together. Let's do it together.
Yeah, all right.
Okay. Yeah. Can you correct the tilt, John?
Oh, mind the back.
Yeah, you're going too fast to left, Richard.
Too far to the left, they've gone out altogether.
Gentlemen, start off talking about, Richard, your recent move into politics. But Nick and John, you've also been involved in slightly different things over the last year from what most of fans are used to thinking of you as. John, what have you been up to since you last descended upon our shores a year ago?
Well, gosh, are you okay then? A lot of things, of course, living in Hollywood keeps one busy, and I was very fortunate to be picked up by Robert Wagner to be the executive producer of a tennis and golf club.
Like that?
Yes, yes, he came up straight up to me and asked me if I was gay. I said, gay, I'm not even bloody happy. No, and I produced this wonderful tennis classic, and I met lots of lovely people. We raised $2 million for battered women and abused children, of which there are huge quantities in America. And just a lot of other things which are a little too long to go into now, but suffice to say, I'm very happy to be back to see you all. I've missed English fans more than you'll ever know. America's not a place... You're the ones who started it all, and it's just wonderful to see this room full of gorgeous people. So,
I believe you've also been working with a certain mouse.
Yes, I've just become the new voice of Walt Disney. Disneyland in California have used my voice, and I believe so for the next 15 years, introducing their new $38 million light magic show, which took over the electric light. I'd never been to Disney myself, and when I went for the voiceover, they tried to get Sean Connery because of Dragonheart. He wanted $1 million, so they went for me. And so it's very, very flattering, and of course it's high profile, which my star is just beginning to rise. I had a very tough time in America for 6 years. It's a very hard place to settle down in. Not a place to be terribly happy in if you live there. There's a lot of things going on that don't suit my way of life, but I've got an American wife, and I've never been so happy and so in love in my whole life, and really and truly that's why I'm over there. But I have been offered a rather prestigious job back in England in 5 years' time, which I would like to take because I want to come home to die in England, if I may say that. Being as I've died everywhere else. But I want to come back to England, but yes, suffice to say that the Disney thing was awfully nice, and I'm very happy about it. So that's roughly it for me.
Nick, what have you been up to recently? As if I don't know.
As if he doesn't know. Well, on Thursday, I was on polling station duties with my red rosette, and she increased the majority by a twofold, which is very good indeed. Okay, but before that, I've been very busy writing, actually, since last November, nagged by, I think, Paul Simpson, I think his name is, and Daniel Cohen. I've been very, very busy. Finally, I am writing the book, and it's really on the way now. Finally. And I'm very excited about it, and I keep everything crossed and fingers crossed. Okay, well, since last year, yes, I suppose the only other television job I've done last year was, none of you would have seen it unless you lived in Wales. But put it this way, I was playing an ex-public school transvestite.
You look wonderful.
And
yeah, give us a twirl.
Give us a twirl, oh dear. Well, I've got the frock on today. It was a beautiful white satin gown. Wonderful diamantic cluster earrings. And,
He's not joking either.
I'm not joking.
He's not joking.
Not the Brigadier I remember.
I didn't hear that. Didn't see it either.
Left to centre again.
Yes, that was terrific. I think it was all done in Cardiff. Not a lot. It hasn't been the most successful of the year, but I mean, certain things were very good. One of the lovely things earlier this year was decided both Karen, my wife, and I, we need a holiday. So we went to Cyprus, and there was a St. Valentine's Day return. And so I went on a day return to the city of my birth, Cairo, in Egypt.
Oh,
and we came back, and this is why I was born in Egypt, and I also grew up much later in Egypt, and that was quite amazing. So, yes, an away day to Egypt. That's wonderful, isn't it? That was pretty exciting, and what else? Well, I think the writing's taken me over, and it certainly will take me over for the rest of this year, because there's quite a bit more to do yet, but I'm enjoying it. It's a challenge. It's tiring. I haven't realized how tiring it is, actually, because you've got to get the concentration. But most of I seem to be lucky with recall. I have recall of anecdotes that not even you, other people, any of you remember, but I seem to remember them. So I hope there'll be some what they call fresh material. Anyway, I'm enjoying it, loving it, very happy to be in Manchester, and very happy to be in Manchester with a Labour government, with a majority. The biggest majority since 1832, when the Great Reform Act was passed, because history was passed. The Reform Act of 1832, European history was my strong point. And I'm a bit of a European. I disagree with Richard about these matters. But I must tell Richard this, he doesn't know this. Actually, when I went to the Labour Committee rooms, they said, do you know you're on time-out? I said, no. They said, well, the gentleman called Ian Levene and Nicholas Courtney, members of the referendum party. It's all his fault, because I did a show for him playing Sir James Goldfinger.
I was just going to say, Richard, you not only were you a candidate, but you were also involved very heavily with the publicity for the referendum party with this show. Can you tell us something about it? Because it's something that was known in the London area, but I don't think got much publicity that far outside.
Yes, well, when Nick was mentioning all the wonderful things he's been doing this year, I was very surprised he didn't actually mention the best thing of all, and that his appearance on a wooden hobby horse. Yes. And I've got it in the car. You can ride it later if you like.
I can ride it later, but I've got And I've got the trainers.
You have?
Yeah, but I haven't got the white tights.
Oh, don't worry
Well, I
about
gave
them.
them back to you, didn't I?
And I've worn them since myself. He played Sir James Goldfinger. It was very good. Yes, you said that I've...
Very well, seriously, very well written and directed by Richard. And that is for true.
Thank you very much.
Very well written, very well written.
It was actually a short, scabby little piece, and rather in the nature of what's that television programme with the funny faces?
Spitting Image.
Spitting Image, thank you very much indeed. I always forget words when I really want
I
them.
didn't wear rubber masks.
You say that I've just made an entry into politics. Actually, I've just made an entry out of politics, an exit out of politics, very sharply on Thursday night, which of course was quite a sort of a mind-blowing experience. In fact, this morning, I just realised I've only just sort of come to. I was very numb last night when I arrived. Yes, politics means a lot to me, but then actually it means a lot to you, although you don't know it. Most people say not interested in politics. In fact, every moment of the day you're interested in politics. Whether you have money for the arts, whether you drink beer and it's getting expensive, what school you go to, it's all politics. So none of us can afford not to be interested, and I get interested in one or two issues. On this particular occasion, I was interested in democracy. I was interested in people being fully informed about the most important issue of our times, which is our relationship with Europe, and for the people to say what they want. Now, actually, Nick was saying that he and I don't agree on this issue. Actually, we do agree on this issue. I'm not anti-European at all. I'm pro-democracy. I just want people to have their say. So that's what I've been on about there. Yes, as far as the actual play is concerned, I always try to combine my real life with my fantasy life. And I wrote this play called Gagging Britannia, which is now going to go to the Edinburgh Festival again. Mm-hmm. John came with me on a play a few years ago, Recall Unit.
And the Great Teabag Mystery.
The Great Teabag Mystery. We shall be at Southside, which is near the Fringe Club. So if you're going to be in Edinburgh for the first week of the festival, do hope people will come, because it is a very funny play. And it's actually got a second half, which I'm writing now.
All right.
I've asked Nick to be in it. I don't know whether he's going to be able to. Did you get my letter, Nick?
I got your letter. And you addressed it to me on the envelope, but actually inside it was addressed to David McGilvray.
Oh, my God.
Another gentleman, another member of this very good cast, because we had a smashing cast.
That means that all the letters will be out of sync.
I mean,
never mind.
Yes. That's all. I have got your letter anyway.
Gosh, I wonder who got
more of that anon, though. More of
I wonder who got the letter saying that Nicholas Courtney stinks.
His agent, probably. Moving back to Doctor Who, Richard, you joined the team rather later than John and Nick, who had become established with the show.
Yes, the show got very tired, actually. They needed some new blood.
And left before them.
Yes, well, I mean, I wouldn't want to stay after the party's finished.
How did it feel joining something that was by then an very established hit, and there was a format that was set up?
The format didn't worry me, because I felt that I was very much at home there. But actually joining the team and going into a very successful television series was very nerve-wracking indeed. The biggest thing I'd ever done on television, and it took me, the day I left, I think I had learnt how to actually behave.
Intriguing. John, your route into Doctor Who was in fact a very different one from virtually anybody else's. From male model at store to...
Well, no, salesman, not male model.
Oh,
yeah. Are
you sure?
Yeah.
Are you quite sure?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I don't wear dresses myself. It's too much of a drag.
I can recommend it.
How did you feel when you came onto the Doctor Who team with Web of Fear and then later coming in as Benton?
Well, when you look back, retrospective views are often nicer than present-day ones, and it was the biggest thing in my life for no other reason than we didn't know then that it would end up being a phenomenon, loved and adored by fans and actors alike. And I, unlike most of the other actors, hadn't had any acting training. But it was Douglas Camfield who'd seen me do a walk-on for him in, I think it was like a live Wednesday play. And it wasn't until last year that Barry Letts informed me that Douglas had walked into the office and said, "I've seen a young man that I want to play Secret Agent Benton."
And he said, "Boy, can that boy walk?"
So that was how I started. And I look back, now I'm living in America, as I said, I think of England far more than I should, but there's not a day goes past when something Doctor Who related doesn't happen. I mean, I get recognized in Hollywood in the strangest places from fans, because there's a lot of fans in America. But it was an astonishing thing because you look at all the other actors that could have gotten the part. Although I suppose, like, who else, I've always said this, who else could have played the Brigadier? I mean, we had one other Brigadier, and I think I've seen dead dogs act better than he did, but you make the mark, you know, the acting is, whoever gets the character, you can't imagine anyone else doing it. But that was my introduction, you know, in Invasion, and then, of course, the rest is history. Couldn't believe it.
And Nick, when you came on board, you'd already been involved, pardon me, with the show with Brett Vile, and then came back in as a late replacement for Lethbridge-Stewart character, although you were going to be in the story in the first place. When you played the part, did you ever think there was a chance that this whole unit idea, which was, or rather the military idea, which was quite different for Doctor Who in 1968, did you think that might be a way that the show could go forward? Did you ever think there was a chance that this was going to be a long-running earner for you and a nice part that you could expand as you have?
No, I had no idea whatsoever. To me, it was a job, very much, and this is all in the book. I mean, a lot of it is, I do owe to Douglas Camfield, who, because he originally saw me for the thing about the Crusades. I didn't get that. But then he remembered, and I did Brett Vine, that was Dougie again, and then Web of Fear, I was due to play, as you probably all know, Captain Knight, who gets killed off. The last moment, an actor called David Langton, was going to play Colonel Lethbridge-Stewart, had to bow out. So Douglas said, do you mind playing the Colonel instead of the Captain? I said, no, promotion's good. Fees the same, BBC, same fee. And then suddenly, when Peter Bryant, who was the producer, said, look, would you like, John Pertwee's going to take over from Patrick Troughton, would you like to be involved in it, and 2-year contracts? Well, of course, I jumped at the chance. And the whole idea came particularly because my daughter was about to be born, and I needed the security very badly. And then my son was born the next year, so that it all worked out, I mean, just for the best. And nothing happens by chance. You've seen that line of mine already.
Yes.
But no, I have no idea at all, And I'm very grateful. It's been very good to me in this program. I've loved it. I don't regret a second. People sometimes say, oh, well, you know, what way would your life have gone? Well, I don't know. I mean, I grew up in theatre, obviously started in the theatre. It might have gone in any direction. There's no point speculating about it. Yes, it'd be nice to play other parts. Of course I like playing other parts. Well, I haven't just played a transvestite, haven't I? But I mean, I'd rather do something else in a different frock, as we call it. You know, sort of a bit of classic stuff. But I don't regret a second of it. It's been wonderful, and this whole... No, it's...
You always learn things at conventions, don't you? I found it's really fascinating. I never knew I beat Nick Courtney to the part of Captain Mike Yates.
No. Captain Knight. Knight, that was the Web of Fear. Captain Knight, who got killed off.
And Richard, you were saying that you felt you were joining this team. Of course, a key member of the team is now no longer with us, and I believe that the last time that you three gentlemen actually were together was only a few days before John's sad death.
About 10 days or so, yeah.
Yes.
Looking back now, one of his last major convention appearances was here at Manopticon, which we know he loved and enjoyed. He had the visit to Allbourne, scene of the demons. Looking back now after a year, what is your favourite memory of working with John? John?
Well, mine was simply that when I first joined Doctor Who, John used to do a lot of cabaret all around the country, and I was very grateful that he chose me to drive. I sort of technically lived with John for 2 years. We shared the same rooms and all these hotels, doing all these beauty contests and so on all over the country. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And he was incredible because he gave us all such a break. He was the most unvain leading man. I mean, like all of us, we've all got our little personal foibles, but he always shared everything. He never tried to take the show. He gave the Brig stuff, Benton stuff, Richard's his stuff. So all my memories of John, I mean, there's not enough time to go into it, but suffice to say that my last moment with him, I was sharing the bed and breakfast when we did the Damons, and his room was next to mine, and I carried his cases up, and I knew John was in a pretty bad way, and if you look at the video, because it's easy to see in retrospect, but if you see the video, you can see the beginning of the end. But he actually had told me in his room that he was going to die, and if you remember, Nick, on stage, he had said the Friday evening before the actual day, John Pertwee actually said to the audience, he said, I don't think I'll be around a lot longer, so I'm very pleased to be here, which I thought was his way of saying that he's going to pot his clogs. And I think also, then I had to go back to America, and I think he then went to America to see the movie. We were all anticipating this movie. I mean, I met Philip Segal in Hollywood last week, and he fell right over me. He was all over me. I was kissing his feet at the time. And John wanted to see the movie. He wanted to see which way Doctor Who was going. And of course, now we've seen the movie. We know what it did for Doctor Who, but that's because it was set in America. I mean, America cheapens everything in terms of, you know, the moment that scene opened up in San Francisco, my interest just went. You know, it was bullshit, the opening. But the problem is, I'm a producer now, and I know how difficult it is in America. And when I met Philip just 2 weeks ago, he did admit, he said there were so many chiefs he had to please. He admitted, quote, there was no way he could have pleased everyone. There was no way he could have kept it on the English track. They had to Americanize it. And if you remember, if you think back, the moment they said they would Americanize it, in a way, that was the writing was on the wall. It doesn't transfer. It's an English show, and damn it, it's got to stay English.
Richard.
Sod the American.
Yes, it's...
Working with John.
Yeah, working with John was incredible. It's very difficult to sum up a man's life and a very long-standing friendship just in a few words. Probably the fewer words, the better. I will always remember him, I think, as a father figure, and a very amusing father figure. I think those are the two things. First of all, and his relationship with the company. As a father figure, he took an interest in us, in his company of 6, and the guests that we used to have each week. He used to take an interest in our welfare, particularly, of course, the 6 of us. And, I mean, we all have our funny little problems and shortcomings and things. And I can remember conversations that I had with him which were designed to be very helpful. And you don't so often find this among successful leading actors and actresses. They're really much more interested in their own careers. And they don't really take the trouble to... I'm not trying to pull people down, but perhaps they don't have time, or they don't make time to go into the problems of their fellows, and their lesser fellows at that. And so I think of John from that point of view. He was very helpful personally. I also think of him as being great fun to work with. I mean, he was quite a hard taskmaster. Yes, he didn't tolerate fools gladly at all, but he was very amusing, and he was very nice to be with, and he kept the atmosphere fun. I always remember when we went to Albourne for revisiting Albourne, not the last time, but the time before. We were there all a day before him, and it was great. It was wonderful to see everybody and fans and each other and everything. All went very well. Second day, we were there standing in the middle of the green and on the grass, and John Pertwee walks up, and suddenly you realised you were in the presence of a star. I mean, I know this sounds awfully silly, but the whole thing sort of levitated, and he had that atmosphere about him. You could not ignore John. There was a sort of something happened when he appeared. And the third thing about John, of course, was that he was a very good professional. He was a leading man. He'd come up through theatre and treading the boards, and he knew how a company works. A lot of people who only know about television, they don't have that experience at all. They're sort of wrapped in cotton wool, they're pushed in front of the cameras, they're given a hell of a salary, they're sent off home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they'd never meet the audience like we do. And John knew all this, and that is, I think, one of the reasons, as well as the fact we had terribly good scripts during our period of Doctor Who, why the programme was so successful, because he had a company.
Nick.
Nicely put.
Yeah, well, Richard actually said a lot of what I was going to say, but I'll add something further, which I actually said at, I mean, I was on holiday at the time. A friend of mine let me know, so I was back in time for John's funeral, and then also I was asked by his widow, Inga, to speak at his memorial service, and I did. And it's another anecdote I remember, which is at one point early on with John, I was very proud of a new pair of shoes I had bought. They were brown. And I thought, God, these are, oh, they're so wonderful. This is what I'm going to wear for the Brigadier. They're comfortable, they look good. And I remember John, I said, John, what do you think of my new shoes? He looked at me gravely for a moment and said, no, Brigadiers don't wear shoes like that. And of course, he was absolutely right, but I was terribly miffed at the time being younger and slightly more defensive. And so I said, well, why didn't he look after his own? Let me get on with my part, my wardrobe. What's I got to do with it? But of course, the answer was he was absolutely right. And
they were the ones with the high heels, weren't they?
They weren't the ones. No. That's the one thing. I don't mind the, well, having done the narrate on the Rocky Horror Show, you see, I don't mind all the fishnet and the satin pants. It's those high heels. I don't know how people manage that. No. I'm looking around generally. I mean, our ladies manage them. I'm glad to see they probably don't now. But, no, they weren't. They were very elegant pair of Italian brown shoes, but quite rock the part. And, of course, he was right. But as Richard was saying, he didn't suffer fools gladly, and he did sometimes irritate whoever's in charge, possibly the wardrobe or something, because he said, that's not right, or the costume, or the set isn't right. But you see, yes, so I suppose it did irritate some people. But the thing was, he was doing it for the show, not for him, for the standard of the show. He was quite determined that it was going to be right. And, of course, he was right to be determined the show was going to be right.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
John mentioned the TV movie, which of course was the other momentous Doctor Who event of 1996, it says here. Richard, did you see the film?
No.
Lucky you.
I want to see it, I just haven't got round to it.
Nick?
Well, yes, I did, because someone videoed it for me, because it was premiered when exactly when I was in Turkey with Karen. And I came, and I watched it, and I had to go and talk to a convention that the next day or something. I thought, well, I've got to have a look at this. And so I looked at it the first night, I was too tired. And I looked at it again, and the first part, I mean, Sylvester and Paul, fine. I mean, I've never seen Sylvester so still. Usually Sylvester's he's very active, he's wonderful still, he's terribly visible, which is tremendous. But he had this wonderful stillness, which I thought was terrific. But the last half hour with the car chase, I mean, forget it. I mean, it's just, as John said, too American and unnecessary. And a pinch from what, ER or Schwarzenegger. I mean, all these things, it's not Doctor Who. So the last half hour, I'm afraid, was no good for me. Some of the other stuff was interesting. But the last half hour, no, I didn't care for that very much.
Well, maybe that's an item that you're going to put into the Manopticon skip. Or do you have an item to go into it?
Well, yes, I do.
Should we come down to it, Nick?
Right.
Oh, it's now.
No, it's not now. No,
Oh, right.
Just for Nick. Yeah,
Just for Nick.
just for Nick this time. One at a time. The bin can't cope with more than that.
This,
Dusty bin,
you will
part
see,
2.
is The Mind of Evil. Great one with Roger Delgado, who I like so much. The Mind of Evil. But inside this is a picture of who I call the one that got away on Thursday night. The ex-Home Secretary, Michael Howard.
The mind of evil himself.
The Mind of Evil himself.
Right, hang on. Right, we place it into the Manopticon skip. See if it's taken. Room 101. We'll take some questions, I think, from the audience. Gentlemen, if you'd like to come down, because otherwise...
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Fine.
Right. Do we have roving Mike roving?
A roving
Do we
mic.
have
Oh, in
roving
the house
Mike roving?
lights up.
It's my
Good.
hairbrush, I'm not pleased to see you.
Actually, we can have a raving mic. God, I'm working well for 10
Yes, you are.
I told you early not to do you good. Do we have a question? Do we have any questions? Yes, gentlemen. Right.
Oh, now we can see you.
So
How did Richard feel about Mike Yates becoming a traitor in Invasion of the Dinosaurs?
Well, first of all, of course, I was not a traitor. I thought I was trying to establish the golden age on Earth, which is what I've been doing for the last 3 weeks. in the general election campaign, I always back the wrong side. I don't know why. The only people I back the right side is you.
Okay. Yep, near the front, yes. Yep.
Well, I am. I've just written a movie script in Hollywood, which nearly got picked up 4 months ago, and I just had to get over the shattering disappointment of missing $3.5 million. But you know, one gets over it. And I'm writing my book as we speak because one of the things I did when my family fell apart 15 years ago, I decided to go to sea. John Pertwee was, as you know, in the Navy, and my father was on the Russian convoy during the war. And I decided to go to sea, which was the best decision I ever made. It was the most exciting 2.5 years of my life. I did 48 countries, 36 islands, met millions of people. And I decided to write a journal. I had this very thick diary with me, and I must confess, I'm like Nick, I'm enjoying writing. I've been writing scripts for Robert Wagner, which he liked, and I worked on the assumption that if he liked them, then I must be doing something right. And so I've been doing my journal slowly and gradually, and getting it all down on tape. So whilst I didn't want to do a book, I think we actually owe the fans a book or two. I can't imagine how many copies would sell, but yes, mine will be about, I imagine, in 5 years. But thank you very much.
Richard, you seem to be the odd one out of the trio. Are you doing your book?
Well, yeah, I've stopped talking about it now because, yes, I have written The Adventures of What Happened to Mike Yates. But I keep on saying I'm going to have it ready for next year, and I've now stopped saying it. Yes, actually, my whole pattern of life has changed quite considerably because I'm centering my focus in London now instead of in Yorkshire, because London is where the work is, and hopefully that the pen will come out again. As I say, I've been writing plays.
Another question. Yes, then, over there.
Yes. Yes, I was. In fact, it's not until I've seen all the reruns in America that I realized that I did quite a few movies. And George Sand, I think it was called what? That's a very apt title, I thought. Yeah, it was Val Guest directed, I remember. Yes, George Sanders, Joan Collins. Yes, and yes, gosh, that was a long time ago, though. Gosh, thank you very much, yes.
Another question. Any questions from this side? Down near the back. We've got a roving mic heading down.
Beautiful room full of people, I must say.
Can we shout out down the back this question? Somebody? No, a hand's gone down. Take this one again.
What's the iPad story like?
Yes. Can we get? No. This is actually something we wanted to do for the book because Nick feels that everybody's heard the eye patch story. What's the point of putting it in the book? How many people, can we do a straw poll? How many people have actually heard the genuine eye patch story as opposed to the version told by John, told by anybody else? But Nick's own, can we have the story, please?
Yes.
We're taping this, so it's
You can have the story indeed. Well, it was during Inferno, which is the first chapter I've written on this book because it was obviously my personal favourite, playing two parts. It's very interesting. And in Inferno, the brigade leader, the fascist, I have an eye patch, which Dougie reckoned had been received in what I call the Heidelberg scar, because he was having a deal with someone. And his eye had obviously been put out by someone he thought the brigade leader would be. Anyway, so I was sitting there in my office while John was bringing in John Pertwee as a prisoner, and I swung round, and they all, this was in the studio, mind you, dress rehearsal probably, and they all had eye patches on. John,
Caroline, John,
three Johns. You know, because the first time John Pertwee told this story, he said, and there was Katie, and I said, no, John, it wasn't Katie, it was Caroline.
I told it as Liz as well, don't worry.
Liz as well. And then they all were with the eye patch stories on, you see, thinking to break me up. The trouble is they didn't. I just went on with the lines. I went on with the lines, and one by one they went. I think he went first.
Yes, I did.
I think probably Pertwee went second, and I think Caroline and John went third. And I still pursued the lines.
Yeah.
And they said, you swine. Sorry. It's very hard to make me laugh if I don't feel like it. I can take in the humour and enjoy it. It's the unexpected which makes me laugh and giggle. Because dear Dougie, bless him, Dougie Captain used to say, we had a comedy run-through, you see, to get rid of all the giggles. He said, and if something went wrong, that's a more serious one, he'd get very annoyed, Dougie. He said, you had your comedy run-through, and I said, Dougie, dear Dougie, darling, you have a comedy run-through, which I'm not sure whether it works anywhere, particularly, I think it didn't work for me. But I said, you can't get rid, if something happens like that and it's funny, it's going to happen if you're trying to do it for serious. We're not fooling around. That's true. Honestly.
It's been done. The idea's in your mind, isn't it?
Well, that's right. It's the unexpected which makes me laugh. As I've said before, and that's all right. You're going to surprise me with something which is...
I'll definitely walk you off. How about Richard, what makes you laugh? If we're sticking with the...
Anyway, that's the iPad story.
Yeah.
What makes me laugh?
Yeah.
Jokes.
John Levene's jokes.
Well, no, I was going to go into politics. I had half a mind to go into politics, and because I figured that's all you really needed, and My only political tip. Can I just ask, is everybody warm in this? Is this hotel, is this the warmest sodding hotel you've ever stayed in? I'd like to thank poor Condom right now. I got a lovely room, obviously flying me in from, I've got a wonderful room. I've got sliding doors, carpet, wall to wall. It's incredible. I've never slept in a bloody lift before. Never known anything like it.
But it reminds me when the three of us were in Florida doing a convention many years ago, and the air conditioning broke down in Florida in August.
Yeah.
And you guys are lucky because, bless their hearts, some of the guys, when we were signing the autographs, they were there with
boards. Yeah.
Any volunteers?
Talking about fans, they were.
Any more questions? You're doing really beautifully. And yes, there's one at the back straight away with the money in it. Downtime, wartime,
Yeah.
are we going to club
Right.
it?
Well, yes, I would. And in fact, I might be. Contract isn't signed yet, but I might well be doing a sequel to Downtime. That's quite possible.
Go.
Those of you who didn't hear the question, it was that Nick's been involved with Downtime and John 10 years back now was involved with Wartime, which in fact is the first of the unofficial spin-offs. Richard, have you ever been approached or have you ever wanted
No, I think I did something called Tea Time. I just done we recorded a few extra bits for the old Mythmakers, which is now a new Mythmakers, which I think improves it enormously. Actually, that was a nice series.
Yes, it was. The extra footage is terrific. It's good.
And Percy.
Yeah. How do you feel that the conventions and docking fans in general in the UK have changed over the last 10, 15 years since you've been doing conventions?
Oh, nice question. It hasn't changed.
Not
Love and affection in the
seismically,
beginning.
no, I don't think.
I think the questions are becoming a lot more sophisticated. Actually, there was a time when we used to be asked exactly the same question at every single convention you go
What
to.
was it like working with Tom Baker?
Yeah.
I mean, remember that one used to come on?
Yeah. What was it like?
What was it like?
Oh, who's your favourite doctor? And of course, we always say the same thing. But no, I agree with John. I don't think they have changed in quality. I think the quality is exactly the same. It's always been absolutely superb. It's always a wonderful moment to meet the people the other side of the camera. This is a notably good convention. Very sad. I think it's the last one.
It is apparently, yes.
Yeah, it's a great shame.
Mentioned Manopticon's always
Question over there.
I bloody hated it. I thought, well, in fact, when they asked me to be in the Five Doctors, you see, I worked hard on Benton because I didn't think I was a very good actor
Didn't
then.
show.
Well, that's what I was going to explain. But no, and I worked very hard on Benton because unlike the others, I hadn't done any repertory or drama school, and I was very conscious and very lacking in self-esteem. And that's, I think it's possibly an English trait, but what happened is I was disappointed because there's a lot of other things I could have done, and it insulted the intelligence or intellect that I put into Benton. And that's really one of the reasons I turned down the Five Doctors, is because they insulted all the work that Douglas, Nick, Richard, and myself had done on Benton. And I was going to do one scene with Patrick Troughton out of vision, and that's not the reason I was in it, because vanity isn't what this is all about. But the fact that I wouldn't have recognized the second Doctor, one of the guys I got on Best in My Life. And I remember the director phoned me up and said, we'll do a rewrite. Well, I've heard that word before, too. And so they rewrote it, and I was even more out of bleeding vision, and not recognizing him even more. So I just totally refused to do it, based on the assumption that I worked so hard as Benton that I didn't want to let my own character down. That's just defensive.
Actually, I think that, John, you always put yourself down about the acting thing, because, to be quite honest, I think that to have a tremendous sort of background of sort of academic whatever is actually a disadvantage to acting, especially in film. And I think that you are very natural in front of a camera, and that is a most tremendously strong point. I actually had to unlearn all the things that I'd learnt at RADA and Oxford and Christ knows what, because in a way it got in the way of my work in front of the camera, where you just need to be.
I hadn't actually thought of it. Thank you, Richard. Why didn't you tell me this 20 years ago?
I've only just worked it out.
I never got to university because I had to go in the army and do my national service. And I stayed a private, as you know, and that's why I played as Brigadier, I suppose.
Yes, down front. Yep.
John, do you think Benton could have been a captain?
No.
No. No. no, but when I became regimental sergeant, I got £20 raise every time if you remember, I started off at £60 a week, and then I became Corporal Benton, and I got £70 a week. Then I became Sergeant Benton, I got £80, and then I was made Regimental Sergeant Benton, and I got £90 a week. And
my salary will remain the same throughout, I think.
I must say one thing, though. I think it's wonderful that the three of us are, A, still alive in this troubled world, and that we are here. It's 30 years ago today, almost. I mean, it's almost 30 years that the show was on. And I just think it's wonderful that you still come here and that we're all still here. I just find I'm all healthy and all that. I just think it's very nice. Well, I like things like that, because we could have all been gone. Exhausting. No, that's where my self-esteem wasn't damaged. My first fan letter was, from 636 ladies, and I actually went to the factory, I must confess, and that is where Pertwee was just... You see, John took me under his, whatever you call it, under his wing, and he taught me. I remember seeing John do vaudeville. Now, most of you aren't as old as we are on stage now, but back in those days when vaudeville, before video, which I think video's ruined everything, personally. I think computers and video are the biggest scourge we've invented because it's taken away all the things that we used to hold precious. Now everything... Well, no, but everything now is instantaneous and we're so overloaded with information. But back in those days when John used to say to me, we used to do the buttons and do all the, the beauty contests, and it was one day, the first gig I ever did with John, he taught me to do the chair gag, the old thing, the Bentwood chair. And he's taught me how to do that, and I'm hoping to possibly do it in my next panel. But we got to Butlins, and this was the first time I'd ever met real vaudevillian people. All these people that are now dead and gone, and there was one sketch John did. We got to Butlins and Minehead, and he said that he had three props, the chair, a guitar, and a 22-foot-long pitchfork with a genuine pitchfork on the end. And so this was my first time on a big stage, because Butlins used to be really big. And they had an orchestra, a 20-piece orchestra, and John didn't tell me what was going to go on. He just told me that after I'd done the chair gag, that I'd have to get the pitchfork. And I walked on, and John looked, he did the old gag, he looked at the piano player and said, could you give me an E flat? And so the guy gave him a note, and he said, oh, Buggy, give me an E and I'll flatten it myself. And all that. So anyway, in the end, the trumpet player had to do a solo, and he got it wrong. So the trumpet player had done the pits. I don't know whether you remember when they had orchestras down there.
Not the pits,
so,
the pits.
What?
Not the pits.
Oh, sorry. Well, that's what the act was. The act was the pits. The pit. Anyway, so the trumpet player got it wrong, and John would look down and say, could you get that right, please? And the trumpet player said, oh, sorry, Mr. Pertwee. So they'd start the thing again, and the trumpet player would get it wrong, and Pertwee would say, would you mind? And he ends up getting cross. And then, on the third time, he said, if you get it wrong another time, he said, I'm going to have you out of that orchestra or whatever Nick's just... yes. That, and I'm going to have you out of there, you see. And I used to think, well, what is he going to do? So anyway, the trumpet player got it wrong again. John picked up the pitchfork, and with all the energy I've ever seen, it went down and stuck it right into the stomach of the trumpeter, and pulled the guy out of the, whatever Nick said it was, out and threw him right over the back of the stage whilst the trumpet was playing. And of course, I thought it was a dummy with a trumpet, but that was what vaudeville really was. And I saw the end of that, and that's why I wish it could all come back, and I think vaudeville will. I think it'll be a full circle.
One last question.
In the light of the Labour victory, Frankie Howard has been Prime Minister.
Oh, right. Oh, no. Somebody else answer that question, Nick.
No. All you've said, Nicholas, want you to be Foreign Secretary. By the way, I hope it's not being, but I do want to thank, after John died last year, I don't know how it was arranged, whether I was elected or was decided by all around the country, but thank you, some of you, who have contributed to making me John's successor, the president of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much. It's a great honour, and I've got to find out what my duties are, because I haven't found out what they are yet. But I hope I do it as well as John do. John do, yes, but I doubt that I will, because he was quite something. And on the last note, he's right, absolutely right. John Pertwee taught me, what I'm grateful for, how to, I can use the word now, because you think it means something else, how to stop being a private person. I watched him, he made me open face, do cabaret. All this wouldn't have happened had I not been to work with John Pertwee. It wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have had the courage to get up here and chuck myself about or whatever I do.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Levene, Sir Richard Franklin. Before we have our...
Thank you.
And just give you a chance for a very quick breather before our next panel. Here's Mr. Gillett to tell you all about it.
God, it is hard out there.